My name is Rob Esposito with MaxLux Media, and we are here on the best marketing podcast ever.
And I'm Rebel Risty with Rebel Marketing and Rebel Labs AI.
And today we're here to talk with my good friend, Ron Marcus. We're going to talk a little bit about his agency. We're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a director of marketing for a large corporate or nonprofit entity, and what it's like to transition between the two. Ron's got a real interesting story to tell us, and so I'm really excited to hear a little bit about his journey. So hey, Ron, welcome. So why don't you start with just giving us a little bit of kind of history and how you got into marketing, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, well, I was one of those people that knew what I wanted to do even in high school. So
wow, that's amazing.
I was already creating ads and ad headlines back in high school, which I hate to date myself, but that was in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And that was the age of still the classic ad person, if you will. So that grand tradition that really flourished in the 60s with names like Leo Burnett and Doyle Dane and Bernbach and Scally McCabe Sloves and David Ogilvy and Mathers.
Okay, I finally know one. I know one.
So you kind of caught the end of the Mad Men era? Is that what I'm catching
That's
here?
exactly right. But those were the giants of creativity in advertising back then. And so if you were into advertising like I was, those were the heroes. Those were the inspirations. We are on the shoulders of those giants, even if the younger generation has no idea who those people are. They're the ones that made today's marketing and advertising possible. So I came up on the tail end of that era, and I really had dreams of being in a big agency and working on creative and coming up with headlines and copy and all that. But you have to really pound the pavement when you get out of college to get a job like that. If you're lucky to even get in an agency, your first couple of years might be in the mailroom or fetching coffee, and you're paid dirt, and it's a highly...
Film and video work are very much the same.
Still today, Rob. You're still in the mailroom.
Yeah, it's highly competitive. I mean, everyone wants that job, and it pays nothing. So if you're lucky, you rise up the ranks. But I wasn't interested in going through that. So I went on the corporate route, and actually that was a good choice. And I ended up being a marketing director at startup. It wasn't... Startups back then were a little bit different, but it was a computer hardware company. They made tape drives that allowed you to take data off a
Tape what?
Yeah, tape. What? Tape, actual magnetic tape on reels.
What is this?
Well, that, if PC mainframes, that's how they store data.
It was a step up from the stacks of punch cards that they used before.
Right. And before that, it was stone tablets. But so they wanted to get the data from mainframes onto PCs. And so this company made drives where you could read these mainframe tapes and get them onto your PC and get access to that data. That's how things were back in early 90s.
Crazy.
So that's where I cut my teeth. It was an excellent job. And I won't bore you with every single job I've ever had, but I had a long progression of marketing director jobs in some tech companies, engineering companies. Back then, it was a lot easier to get a job. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But then I decided to, actually a friend of mine wanted to start a creative agency, and he roped me in. I don't know if you remember the show 30-something, again, dating myself. This was a big show in the 80s about a bunch of 30-somethings. And two of the characters, Michael and Elliot, ran their own little ad agency in Philadelphia. So we were Michael and Elliot. Like, that was our model, our blueprint. We used to joke about that. We ran this creative shop for a few years, and it was fantastic. Then I went back into corporate for a little while, but eventually found my way back into running an agency. And so I founded Epiphany Marketing back in the beginning of the 2000s.
Great name.
Yeah, I like it.
Thank you. And I had a combination of staff and freelancers and ran that until the crash in 2009. And my business crashed as well, partly because of the recession, partly because I made the mistake, and this is a note for any entrepreneurs, of trying to do too many things at once and spreading myself thin. And the business the second business I had started wasn't making any money. So I actually started one of the earliest YouTube channels.
I've seen this.
Yes.
I want to see this.
Some of it is NSFW. It was called ShindyTV, and you guys did your opener with Ever at the same time. So we used to have people that we interviewed on camera say, you're in the scene with ShindyTV, and sometimes we'd all say ShindyTV together. But it was a show about San Diego lifestyle and entertainment, and we would go into all kinds of different bars and restaurants and hot places to go and see. And
Were you just ahead of the time? Is that why? Because it sounds like it would have been a great show.
yeah, and I made a mistake. So our thought was we'd go into these places, we would give them free packages with the hope of then enticing them to hire us as their production marketing. But that didn't work. Didn't work at all.
I had the same idea 20-something years later, and we had a YouTube show called Craft Lifestyle on Tap, where we would go around and interview brewery, winery, meadery owners and everything, and I hosted it, and it was exactly the same idea. So, and we thought we were so clever, and we did get a little bit of work out of it, but it sounds like, wow, you beat us to the punch by decades.
Yeah, but we failed. So, what can I say?
I love Ron. He's so humble.
Well, no, there's nothing wrong with failure. In fact, I encourage it.
Sure.
That's how you learn. And I learned a lot. But the show had very high production values. I got to have my hands in everything. So some editing, a lot of directing. I was host talent sometimes. I was holding the camera sometimes. And it really allowed me to learn a little bit of what you guys at Max Lux are expert at. And we were run and gun style, right? So we were just with our handhelds, and they were decent cameras, but just interviewing people with our shotgun mics and running around. And it was a lot of fun. You know, we got into clubs that had super long lines around the corner, but we were ushered right in, and then interview the general manager, interview the chef while they're making food. They'd plate food for us, and we'd eat it on camera, and go to the mixologist at the bar, and they'd make these special cocktails, and we'd drink them in front of the camera. And so that part was fun.
I mean, that is awesome. I mean, I've disclosure, I've gone back and looked at some of the ShindyTV stuff. He shared his YouTube channel with me from back in the day, and it reminds me so much of like what MTV kind of was in the 90s when it was all spring break and party here, there, and everywhere before it all became this real world reality TV. We don't do music anymore stuff. I mean, that's what MTV was doing. They were going to big parties and spring break and, Mardi Gras and all these places and doing exactly what you guys were doing. And so I see that, what you were doing, and I got to tell you, I was really jealous. I mean, that looked like so much fun.
It was fun. It was also grueling. I mean, it was a lot of late nights. By the end of the night of filming, even though everyone's having a good time and drinking and dancing and whatever, it's like, I want to just get home because I'm beat, and you know the drill. You know what it's like to haul the equipment in and get set up. Oh, yeah.
A whole van worth of stuff.
It's a lot. You've done a lot of events, so you know the slog there. So, and, looking back, if I had tried to make it an advertising model instead of what we did, it might have had a chance at success. So, but I like to, brag that we were one of the earliest YouTube channels, and you look at what's going on today, and that's what we were doing back in 2007, 2008. So
you were a little ahead of your time.
A little bit. Yeah. And now I can't do that anymore because I have a 3-year-old. But
that kind of puts the kibosh on things.
So 2009 crash, I went back to work for corporate for some time, but that didn't last very long. Tough culture, and ended up just going back into being a consultant. And at that point, it was just all freelancers, and I did that for a number of years. One thing that really helped me a lot, if you can get involved with a group like Vistage. So I was a Vistage member for a couple of years. And for those that don't know, Vistage is a peer advisory group, primarily for top executives and CEOs. And so there'll be a group that meets every month. They've got facilitators and guest speakers every time, expert guest speakers, and then they all share with each other what they're going through, their issues, their problems, their successes, and they counsel each other. They help each other. I'm a big, big believer in that model. I think it really works.
I agree. I've been in a couple of groups too, Sage, and they're phenomenal. Other masterminds. They're really important to me.
Yeah, and I mean, even networking groups, and speaking especially to some of the younger folks in our audience, I know it's really hard for Gen Z to get out and do things in person, but you have to be able to get out there and market yourself. You have to be able to get out there, press the flesh. At the end of the day, like, you're selling a result, but in many cases you're selling yourself, and people want to know you, to be able to buy, whatever your service is, and decide if they like you or not. And so it really, I know we were sold this kind of bill of goods that was like, oh, the internet, if you just have a website and a social media presence, that's all you need. But, I have to say the connections and the mentorship that are available out there are huge. And if you're not taking advantage of that, Get out there. Get out there.
So
Yeah.
perfect segue back into the story, because I don't know if they still have this, but back then they had a third track. It was called a trusted advisor track. So it was for people like me who were independent advisors or consultants. It was a lower price point, and but the exact same model. And so I did that for a couple of years and really got in. Had a great relationship with a facilitator, such that he was facilitating some other CEO groups. And he brought me in as a guest speaker talking about using video for your marketing, which back in 2010 was still kind of novel, right? So, today it's everything, like
Everywhere.
the basis, right?
Yep.
And everyone's doing it. So doing that, I got exposed to some CEOs who liked what I was talking about. And that turned into multiple years of business, not just video production, but one company hired me to be their outsourced marketing director for a couple of years. I totally rebranded that company and did all their marketing for a couple of years. And so that was a great gig.
Are they still around?
They're still around. Actually, they sold, but they're still under the name that I came up with the name and came up with the logo, and it's still on their building. So I'm very proud. It's nice when work I did 10, 15 years ago to rebrand a company, and then I drive by their building and the logo's still there.
Still there.
Talk about making your mark. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's very gratifying. So around 2016, I was newly married and shouldering some debt. I'll just make myself vulnerable here and say that I was still carrying debt from that failed business. And that's a terrible thing. You do not want to be carrying debt like that. A lot of it was credit card debt. Rates are very high, and it was a pit I couldn't get out of. So
I understand how that is 100%. When I owned my brewery, same thing. We were just doing anything to kind of make ends meet in the beginning and built up a lot of debt.
yeah,
And it, literally didn't make a penny until I sold the business.
it's scary. So we decided I needed to go back to work and get benefits and all that kind of stuff. And so I worked in corporate again for a while. My last gig was a 5.5-year gig at the San Diego County Bar Association. That's actually where I was working there when I met Rob. And, we connected at a Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce event. Again, networking, very good. And we started working with Rob. So he did a few of our events and did a fabulous job. Fantastic job.
And more recently, shot a ton of interviews for a documentary about the San Diego Bar Association.
Yeah, no, that was a great project. I didn't get to see the fruition of it, but so back in September, there was a management change, there was a reorganization, and I was let go. So I celebrated yesterday 6 months of unemployment, and on day one after being unemployed, I did what they say you're not supposed to do. I just went right into job hunt mode. I was worried.
Really? You're not supposed to?
Well, a lot of
To
people.
enjoy it, the time off?
Well, what they say is, you're all frazzled and stressed, and
Right.
Probably angry.
Oh yeah. I had angry nights. I know a lot of people can relate when you're let go from a job, and so they say just take a month to decompress because you need that time. It's not a good time for you to be job hunting, and then after that month, you can refresh your resume and start searching. So I didn't do that. I felt the pressure. I got a family to take care of, and pound. And what I was finding that this was before the change in the administration up in Washington, but things were already pretty bad out there. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm sure everybody is.
And is it bad for marketers or just in general? Do you feel like it's bad for everyone?
In general. So I'm part of another peer advisor group. It's called Never Search Alone. And Phil Terry, who is an advisor to Fortune 500 companies, and he comes from the product marketing and product management world. He founded this nonprofit just to help job seekers, and he published a book. It's $10 on Amazon. He doesn't make a profit on it. He really wants to help job seekers. People all over the country and even all over the world is part of this. And what they help you do is set up a little group of 4 to 6 people that meets every week, goes through the process of the book, mutual support group, right? So I'm in one of those groups.
I love that. I've never heard of this. Oh my gosh.
Never Search Alone. That's the
Never
book.
Search Alone. Oh my gosh.
Check it out.
We'll
Check
have
it
to
out.
put that in the show notes
Yeah.
for sure.
So I've met some really good people. They're product managers or IT folks, and so it's across the board. Like the job market right now is flooded and terrible. And
Why is that?
Well, part of it is because of the internet. So now, and remote work, and LinkedIn's notorious easy apply button. And so you have recruiters, internal and external, that are flooded with resumes. Try to break through that clutter. And then even if you know somebody on the inside that can champion you and get you a fast track to an interview, even then there could be 10 candidates and you can be not one of the chosen ones for any reason, And you might be a great candidate. There could be just one little thing that tipped the scales to somebody else, right? So the odds are much worse in Vegas. At the end of the day, I've had rejection after rejection after rejection. And when I looked on LinkedIn, the algorithm is feeding me all these other job seekers who have been out of work 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 14 months, unemployment's gone, desperate, might have to sell the house. I mean, it's just, it's doom and gloom out there.
So my wife is on a leave of absence from her big corporate marketing job right now, and she is having a similar experience, I think. So it's not just you. It's that there's definitely stuff going on out there. And I think part of it too is that a lot of big tech corporations especially overhired during COVID, and they've been shedding a ton of those jobs. Thousands and thousands of people let go at Google, Facebook, Meta, and Apple, and all those big companies are shedding jobs like crazy. And now the federal government is shedding jobs like crazy, and so that's just going to be tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people all looking at these same.
And not only that, thanks, because I was going to mention the federal layoffs, but also they're pulling all kinds of funding from universities. For instance, UCSD right here in San Diego lost a lot of access to funds for health. So the National Institutes for Health has been defunded and reduced in size. And so a lot of the funding also has been frozen to universities.
So it's not just every regular people out of jobs, but it's highly educated people that are all fighting for a smaller pie.
Yeah.
I have a friend who just got laid off along with 6 of her coworkers, including her boss at UCSD just yesterday. So all this to say, long-winded origin story, to say that at this point in my elder life, I decided this ain't working. Like, I'm not going to totally give up. If there's really plum jobs out there, I'll apply maybe. But I'm really enamored now with the hard pivot I'm making to go back into consulting. I did it for many years. I really know the craft. My love and passion and expertise is in helping companies figure out what their brand is, what is their unique value that they offer to the world, and how do they emotionally engage their customers that need it. And as important, how do they actually deliver on their brand promise? So it's not enough to simply have great marketing. Someone told me a long time ago, I think it was a copywriting instructor that I had that I really loved back in the day. But he said, nothing kills a bad product faster than great advertising. So
I love that.
If your company is not geared up, whether you have a dysfunctional culture, you don't have the financial wherewithal, you don't have the operational efficiencies, your supply chain isn't working right, whatever it is, if you don't have the whole, I used to call this brand 360, and I would include it in the brand audits that I would run companies through to figure out what their brand is, because it's all great to come up with this fantastic messaging and go out with that, but if you can't deliver, if you don't have a customer service experience when someone buys a product and then there's an issue, if that part falls down, I mean, there's a million links in the chain where one link goes bad and your whole brand can be destroyed. And once your brand is hurt, it's really hard to come back from that. So,
yeah, ask Elon Musk.
Well, it's funny. That's the brand du jour to talk about right now, right? So Tesla, and in his case, being such a public figure and being the face of that company, that brand is taking a super hit, and it's going to take possibly years for that brand to save itself, if ever. Like, it may be tarnished forever.
Depends on how leveraged they are. I mean, when you've got sales dropping 70% month over month, like, there may not be any recovery from that, depending on how leveraged they are and what they have to do to service those loans. I mean, Tesla might not make it another year at this rate. I mean, it might not even take a year if this keeps up.
Yeah, people are hating on Tesla. And, you can mention other brands like Enron, poster child for hated brands. Again, the younger generation may not even know what Enron is, but
look it up.
Consulting. What's the name of your new consulting, your new agency?
So I wanted to come up with a name, right? I wanted to be really smart and sexy about it. And my wife said, why don't you, people know you. People know you. So why don't you just market under your own name? And I already had the URL Ron Jesse Marcus. That's my first, middle, and last name. Nice. They're all first names, actually. RonJesseMarcus.com.
Like a clothing brand.
Maybe I'll diversify when I get successful again. But my tagline, and that could very well be really a company name if you want, is purpose-powered marketing. And where that came from, a lot of my experience, both volunteer and work, has been in the nonprofit space. And I've gained a lot of experience in nonprofit, including governance, how boards work, how committees work, policies and procedures, bylaws, and all the things that go, funding and development for revenue.
Talk about a night and day going from something like ShindyTV to the Bar Association, going from loose and fun and let's go shoot in a club and interview some people that are drinking to, the most buttoned up thing in the world that I could possibly think of.
Yeah, creatively it was different, a little more constrained, but they had a good purpose, and any nonprofit has a good purpose, right? And there's, in San Diego, there's 15,000 nonprofits. It's an amazing statistic.
That's crazy.
So I wanted a name that would resonate for nonprofits and purpose-driven works, but it doesn't exclude for-profits, right? Every company has a purpose. So purpose-powered marketing, and it's got some alliteration in it, so I like that, is my tagline. And I gave you guys my business card a few minutes ago, and you'll see Ron Jesse Marcus and then purpose-powered marketing underneath. So that's my company.
I like that. And then we had to do that too, because we're started out Max Lux Media. No, my name is not Max. It's Latin. It's a photography joke. It means more light. But nobody knew what a media company was. They weren't sure, I had people that were like contacting us to, put their old VHS tapes onto DVDs or something. And so we had to come up with a tagline that explained what we did to people. So now it's Max Lux Media, video for business. I don't get stupid questions anymore.
Yeah. Perfect. I mean, you got to say what you stand for. One of my favorite expressions, and I use this when I talk about branding, is if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. So you can't be all things for all people. You have to be very specific about who you serve and what you provide, and it's got to be unique. And, video for business is very specific. So I think you hit it on the head. It's great branding.
From the branding guru. I did something right.
Hey, you nailed it.
We didn't get on the first try, but we got it. Okay, well, that's, just such a broad range of experience. So if you had, advice to a marketer going one way or the other, let's say, in a corporate job, not loving having to show up with a tie on every day and interested in, launching their own small agency, or even if you want to talk about the reverse of that, I've been in the agency slog forever and it's just not for me. And I'm thinking about getting into, what are some of your advice? What is some of your advice for them?
Sure. I'll talk from experience. There's pros and cons to both sides. You're both entrepreneurs, so you'll know the pros and cons of being entrepreneurs. Maybe you came from corporate world as well. In the corporate world, you're beholden to the culture there, the politics, the drama, the competition, budgets coming and going, layoffs, all that stuff, right? Those are the cons. The pros is you might land in a great company with a great culture, with a great product that's doing really well. And you have benefits, right? So you've got medical benefits, you've got 401k matching. That stuff is worth it, those were things I enjoyed in my last job. And when you have a family and if you're getting closer to retirement, those things really matter, right? So now on the flip side, and I'll tell you right now, being independent feels really attractive to me right now because you have so much flexibility. You're not on a time schedule. You're not worried about being in the office 5 days a week, or is it hybrid, or will they allow remote or not, or, you're remote. That's it. So you get to do your own thing. One of the things I most love about being a consultant, running an agency or being independent is I get to work with diverse clients in many different industries. So I get an education, a crash course in a lot of interesting industries, some of which I didn't even know existed. For instance, one of my clients right now, they run a company that it's a portal online with video training courses for folks who are employed by companies that send care elders homes. So they take care of the elderly in their homes. And they have to complete so many credits, if you will, of coursework all year for them to remain certified and for the organization to be in compliance. And so they have this portal that allows these companies to create logins for all their staff and tell them what courses to take and track their completion of the courses and all that. I didn't know that was a thing, right? And right now, part of the project is to figure out how to evolve their learning management system, their LMS, and they built it in 2005. It looks like it. We're going to reskin it. We're going to improve it, improve the UX, and that's fascinating. I had another client who she said, I always forget what that stands for, but it's portable defibrillators. So, it's the device that's on the wall in the park or at the corporate setting or whatever, and someone has a heart attack and
You can zap them.
Yeah, you can zap them because when you have sudden cardiac arrest, you have a 10% survival rate if no one does anything. So you want to call 911, do the zap, and do CPR compressions and keep that going until the paramedics arrive. If you do that, you have a much higher chance of survival.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, it's like night and day, I think.
It's literally night and day.
And
I
those
just
have
learned
changed.
it.
They have changed. I took a recent class, and they're completely different the way they operate. So
Even CPR has changed.
Yeah.
Like the counts and the breaths and all that stuff is all different than when I was an EMT for a while in the night.
Oh, wow.
Until I discovered that I didn't like being covered in other people's bodily fluids. That's exactly how I felt about it too.
And thank you. Good night.
it was a great episode. Thank you all.
That's all we got today.
But indeed, things have changed.
I got a question over here in the booth. Ron, as a consultant, tell us about first of all, who would be like your ideal client? And then walk us through just like kind of step by step, like what's your process with rebranding them, for example?
Great question. So probably my sweet spot would be organizations of 10 employees to a couple of hundred employees, small to medium-sized business or nonprofit. And one thing you got to remember, nonprofits are actually businesses. There's no difference. The only difference is how they're taxed. So they actually need to make a profit, even though it gets plowed back into the business, right? So anyway, but to your question, the process is first I would see where they are and if their brand is in good shape or not. So they might bring me in for something very tactical. It might be we need to spruce up the website, or I need some copy done, or I need a video created, or whatever. And I'm going to say, okay, happy to do it. I'm noticing there's some opportunity here, like your visual identity is all over the place. It's not consistent. Your value proposition, if I come to your website or other properties, I don't know exactly what you do. It's not intuitive. There's an opportunity to shore that up. Are you interested in that? And they may say, yeah, okay. And so it's okay, we've got this brand audit process. We get your key stakeholders. We have multiple discovery sessions. We do some secondary research. We do some interviews of your stakeholders. And then we come up with an idea of what your unique value proposition is, your messaging platform, your key talking points, your elevator pitch. And then how do we support that with your visual identity? So I'm not going to come in like a lot of agencies might and say, hey, thanks for hiring us. Oh, man, you need a new logo. Let's get to work, and a new visual identity. And that's going to be $50,000. I don't want to do that, but I will say, hey, this logo looks dated, or this really doesn't support what you're trying to say. So maybe we can very strategically, surgically, and most economically, because I'm not out. Having been a small business owner for a long time and done everything, payroll and taxes and just keeping the cash flow, all that stuff. I'm here to help businesses succeed. So I want them to do whatever they need and nothing more, nothing less. So anyway, we'll then create all that and create a brand style guide and make sure there's consistency. Basically a franchise model. I should be able to disappear. Here's a guidebook. Anyone that comes in knows exactly how to represent the brand. So I call that franchise model. If you've ever read the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that's exactly what he's talking about.
Yep.
So what if we look at this from the other side? So say I am a small business owner and I want to come and talk to you about branding or, otherwise marketing my business. What information do you need from me to bring to you so you can kind of put that proposal together? I was recently in a situation where I helped a podcast client kind of come up with an RFP for the things that he wanted, but we didn't get a really great response from the agencies. And I think maybe it's because he wasn't asking the right questions or something like that. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, let me see if this answers the question. So the kind of information you need when you're trying to assess someone's brand and where they want to go with the brand. First, kind of get a sense of their origin story. Why are they in business? What's their mission? What drives them? Who are they serving and why? And what are they offering to that client, that customer? And then we'll look at we do a SWOT analysis, obviously. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We do a competitive analysis. Who are their competition? And not just only what products are they offering and what are their features and benefits and how are they better, how are they not better, but How are they positioning themselves? What's their branding? How do you break through that? If you're in a commodity market where everyone's selling essentially the same product, like if you're a bank, there is no differentiation between banks. There just isn't.
100%.
Yeah.
It's
That's true.
accounts and interest rates.
100%. And it's basically it's how they treat you when you go in, if you decide you're going to stick with them or not. But
It's-
otherwise,
The
it's you're
banker,
basically just spinning the dial, and whoever gives me that $300 or whatever, if I leave my $5,000 in my account for the first 90 days or whatever, and that's it. I really, otherwise there's no preference, but if they don't do the things that I want, or they treat me poorly, or I have problems with
You have
them,
one wrong phone call.
I have no problem taking my accounts over to another bank. It's easy.
It's easy now. It didn't used to be. It used to be, they made it hard, but yes. So brand is everything in that case because you don't have any other way to differentiate yourself. So you want to create a persona. You want to create a customer experience. You talked about being treated well. And then you want to be consistent with that. So all of your employees need to be inculcated in how to, it's like being an employee at Disney in costume. You're always in character when you're walking around in public at Disney, right? Percent. Yeah. So then we look at culture a little bit. So is your company culture, now if you're a solopreneur, you are the company culture, right? But if you have a team of employees, and this is where you asked what are my ideal clients, I like to have organizations that have a team of employees. And let's look at your culture and see if your employees are engaged, they buy into the mission, they're high performing, and it's a good place to work. Because if you don't have that in place, it doesn't matter what your brand is, and it doesn't matter how good your product is.
100%.
So that's part of the process. And I have helped some organizations, and this is something that I'm getting ready to productize. So I'm announcing it first here. I haven't even named it yet, but Culture 360 is taken. But
Hey, we know somebody who can help you, though.
Okay. All right, let's get to
He
work.
just started consulting.
Thank you. Oh, who would that be? Okay. How's their culture? So I want to help organizations develop their culture. Transform their cultures, improve their cultures, and understand the importance of culture, and how business outcomes are 100% tied to culture. It's like often overlooked. A lot of places you work, it's like, if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you, and it's got to be the opposite. And I will say, without getting too far into my soapbox here, that I really believe in good leadership, and the best leadership are those that you're almost invisible. It's not about you. It's about empowering your employees and getting out of the way, and they get the credit. A lot of leaders, I don't think they've grasped that yet, and that's so key to a healthy culture.
I have been in corporate jobs where I have seen the culture change with the leader, and it was always a terrible job, but when the right person was in charge, it was very tolerable, manageable. I didn't feel like people were asking me to do things that I didn't want to do. With a poor leader in charge, it really did feel like the worst job in the world. So I 100% identify with that. I think that culture is so important, and it does. It's top down. It really is. It starts with the guy on the top of the pyramid.
I would say even working with clients, like, you don't even have to be in the company. Their culture will affect your team. If they've, are constantly late and always demanding and putting your team down, that culture flows over into what you're doing. So it can be very toxic, or it can be really great when they're amazing,
I have worked with mean clients.
Yeah, we all have.
So my advice, and I'm sure we all would say the same thing, because we asked earlier, what advice do you have? When you first start out and you're hungry for money and work, you'll take anything that comes in the door. We've all been there. And you end up taking clients that either don't value your work and they want to pay you too little, and you'll take it because you're desperate to get it, right?
Right.
I've had clients that didn't want to pay me at all after I did the work.
Yep, we've had a few of
Dealing with
those.
some of that right now.
Yay.
Took them to small claims,
Yep.
won every time.
Yep.
So I'm proud of that record. But you need to be discriminating. Just like if you are interviewing for a job at a company, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And you may be desperate for that income and those benefits. But I'll tell you what, one member of our group, our little peer support group in the job hunting, she really wanted to work for this organization. I won't say who they are, but she got hired. She didn't quite get the salary that she wanted. There was negotiation, but she took it because she really wanted it. And she's been out of work for a long time, and she really believes in the mission. And the culture there was absolutely terrible. political. She called it, watching the movie Mean Girls. I've been there too, actually. And within 3 weeks, she was fired. So you really have to assess, is this client going to be a good client to work with? Is it going to be fulfilling work? Are they going to treat me well? Do they treat their own staff well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with a company.
Yeah, I think one of
That's a hard
the
lesson.
scariest things to do, especially when you're new, is to fire a client,
Yeah.
And I've had to do it a time or two, and you almost are panicking about it because it just feels wrong. But once you do it, I got to tell you, it is like the most liberating thing.
It's a short-lived. The worst feeling, it sounds like we've all done it, is going to small claims court, not getting paid. Yeah, telling your husband you're not going to get your check today or this month. That's what sucks. So
Well, and
those clients are the worst because they take so much brain power. They just suck.
yeah, and at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, as somebody that owns a small company, if somebody's not getting paid because a client didn't pay us, it's not going to be the people that work for me. It's
Right.
it's going to be me,
Nope.
And that you guys are right on. That really is the worst. But well, I guess on that note,
There's so
Get
much
rid of all
more we
your
could,
clients.
so much more we could talk about. The other thing to worry about is if you're delivering a product, especially in our field, and something goes wrong. Maybe print files didn't get prepared properly and things get printed and then you got to redo it. Or you shot video and the audio somehow got messed up and now you got to do it again.
lower third, somebody's name is spelled wrong.
Yeah. Sometimes you're going to eat cost. Like you never want to tell a client, sorry, we asked you to proof it and you didn't proof it properly or whatever, like if you make a mistake, you own it. And
Yep.
you just take care of it. And that may mean you lose some money in the short term, and that really hurts.
Yeah.
I've been there multiple times.
Yeah, well, especially if your business is word of mouth and all that stuff. I only have 5-star reviews. We work really hard. Bend over backwards to keep clients happy. As long as you're paying me on time.
Yeah. No, I can attest to that because we've worked together and you've done a really good job. And I think that's a great, bit of advice to end our episode on is taking the responsibility and owning it.
Yeah.
Right on. So, Ron, if people are looking for you, where can they find you?
Yeah. So I'll give you my URL. And I got to spell my last name or my middle name because Jesse can be spelled multiple ways. But it's all one word. Ron, R-O-N, Jesse, J-E-S-S-E, and then Marcus, M-A-R-C-U-S.com. So ronjessemarcus.com, and my contact information is there. I would be happy to, if you just want to talk and tell me about your situation, and I'm happy to have that kind of chat. That's never a charge for that. Happy to get to know you and see,
Cool.
And again, it was small to mid-size businesses and nonprofits are your kind of target.
Yeah.
Right on. Awesome.
All right.
You want to wrap?
All right. Well, another great episode. Thank you so much, Ron, for
you.
being on the show. And if you want to learn more about Max Lux or Rebel Marketing, we'll put all of our contact info in the show notes. And we'll see you at the next episode.